It's my pleasure to be here. So my talk will be about pets, privacy-enhancing technology, and how to make them usable and trustworthy. And I will focus on usable pets for AI, data analytics, but then we'll also talk about how AI can be used for making pets usable. And yeah, our research also was conducted within the scope of the Papaya EU project on a platform for privacy-preserving data analytics. And here we use different pets like homomorphic and functional encryption or differential privacy for collaborative learning. And the key challenge has actually been how to explain the pets to decision makers and to end users. So there are many challenges because it's somehow crypto magic. It's hard to comprehend or trust that you can do operations on encrypted data, for instance, to end users. Hard to find real-world analogies. So we did different user studies, for instance, on metaphors for explaining differential privacy, where we analyze metaphors that are commonly used. For instance, pixelation of photos is used by the US censors in their promotional material, and we exposed users in interviews, and we actually got a long list of misconceptions that users had in regard to differential privacy, also triggered by their digital world analogies. So especially users that had some security background, when they knew something about encryption, they were thinking that differential privacy, you add noise, but later you could also remove the noise, so you could also decrypt the data. So they didn't trust that the data is really protected long-term and thus would not trust in the technology. Or they focused more on the utility trade-off with this metaphors rather than on the privacy gain. So one conclusion and challenge is also how to put more emphasis on illustrating the privacy risk reductions for explaining pets like differential privacy, and also together with guiding users on adequate risks per context and the implications also in terms of the GDPR. That is especially important for decision makers. Then in another study, we were interested to compare structural, so more algorithmic explanations with functional explanations. That is also important for explainable AI. The GDPR talks about logic behind decision-making, so they demand more structural explanations, while related work says that users understand better functional explanation, that you just explain the functionality. For instance, for end-to-end encryption, there's related work. So we were interested and looked on a use case for using functional encryption for data analytics and compared structural versus functional explanation for expert versus lay users. And interestingly, for both groups, structural explanation were perceived as more trustworthy, convincing, helpful. Also, the perceived comprehension for functional encryption was higher with structural explanation, while the overall objective comprehension was higher with functional. So actually, they understood functional explanation better, both expert and lay users, but they would think that the structural was more convincing and better understandable. So this means we have actually to combine both type of explanations. For instance, in privacy notices, on the top layer we could have a short functional explanation and then have a link to structural explanation that are more algorithmic to foster trust. And also, even if users might not click on it and might not even understand it, but just the fact that there's also a structural explanation will foster trust. Then another challenge, that is what we look in our VASP Nest project that André maybe will talk more about later. We also look how automation and AI can be used to enhance usable privacy, especially decision making. In daily life we are much confronted with privacy decisions, like in cookie banners and to give consent, and users often just click away because of privacy fatigue or habituations without really standing behind the decision. So we classified first different type of privacy decisions, different level of automation and technologies that exist or are possible for automating privacy decisions. For instance, machine learning, it is possible to quite well predict the privacy preferences and decisions and help to semi-automate with, for instance, with privacy suggestions or fully automated decisions. However, Fully automated has also GDPR issues. Because for consent we need affirmative manual actions, and we have also the principle of privacy by default. The best is to go with semi-automated decision. There might be also ethical issues of privacy nudges, but yeah, in our project we will also look on concepts like dynamic consent that could be combined with machine learning supported on-the-fly permission management in the context of IoT TAP, so that the users can be semi-automatically supported for setting privacy permissions in a way that meets their predicted preferences. Yeah, so. Okay, so that is the final slide, key takeaways. So usable pets for AI is important, especially how they can be explained. And here we have to consider not only real-world analogies for finding metaphors, but also digital world analogies that users have. Both functional and structural explanations are important. And it is a challenge how to inform about privacy risk reductions and implications, but I think this is, or we think this is the way to go. And then there's also much potential for using AI for enhancing usable privacy or pets, but here we also have to find solutions that are GDPR compliant and also ethical, and this is also an interesting research area. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you. A question. What is the key lesson learned for you and your team when it comes to usability?
Yeah, that is often harder than you think, and you really have to do or conduct also many user studies. And yeah, and it is interdisciplinary. You need technical expertise, you need legal expertise. The GDPR has also many requirements, yeah, for explainability, for transparency that need to be addressed. So it's really a complex problem, and that, yeah.
Do I hear you say that
also,
we guess a lot?
Sorry?
Do I hear you say that we guess a lot? We have to do real user studies.
Yes, so our research is also based on end-user studies, interviews or focus groups or surveys, because you often have guesses and often it turns out differently.
Yeah.
So most problems, like for instance also the privacy paradox that has been discussed now for many years, that was only detected by incident via user studies. So you, so you have to do a lot.
Work closely with the users, and
yes, you have to have the humans in the loop, and also when you conduct the research.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you.